This is my Patagonia fishing license from 2025. It wasn't expensive and it allowed me to fish anywhere in Patagonia. But there is a massive problem if you're into DIY fly fishing, like me. Under Argentine law, everybody has the right to fish in rivers and lakes. There's no such thing as private water. Article 235 of the Civil Code lists rivers and lakes as public property. And Article 237 says that everybody has the right to use and enjoy public property. That means you and I can fish anywhere in Patagonia. All you need is a fishing license. So what's the catch? The problem is getting to the river without crossing private land. Anybody who's tried to fish DIY style in Argentina will know how frustrating this can be, and that's exactly how I felt on my first trip to Argentina in 2021. Official public access points do exist, but they're few and far between. In January 2024, I returned to Patagonia with a packraft, and that changed everything. A packraft is basically an inflatable kayak that's small and light enough to be carried on your back, but big enough for all your gear when you're on the water. This is my packraft. It's made by Amphibio and the model is Delta MX. It's incredibly small and light, I would say. It weighs under 2 kilograms, and that is with a seat which you have to inflate and this inflation bag which I'll talk about later. You obviously also need a paddle. This is the Amphibio Fly, and it comes in 5 sections, which makes it really easy to fit into a backpack. And I chose it because it is incredibly light, under 500 grams. Finally, you need a buoyancy aid. This one was a fairly cheap one I just got from a local camping store. And then I also pack a piece of rope which I use to make sure the packraft doesn't float away. When I first got this, I was completely new to packrafting. I've now taken it to Argentina twice for about 6 weeks each, and I absolutely love it. There is one other section of the Argentine Civil Code that you should know about. Article 1974, Camino de Serga. The landowner must provide a 15-metre strip of unobstructed land on the riverbank. Camino de Serga means towpath. I'm not sure what additional rights this gives me as a fisherman with a packraft and tent. In theory, it should allow me access to 15 metres of riverbank, but I'm not sure how widely accepted this is. So, how do you inflate the packraft? Well, I'd never seen one of these inflation bags before, so that was new to me. And this is basically how it works. Basically, what you do is you screw this inflation bag onto the packraft. And I'm no expert. It's a question of trapping the air in this inflation bag and a bit of a slow process. Forcing the air into the packraft. Before I get into the pros and cons of this packraft, I should make it clear that I got a 10% discount from Amphibio when I bought it, and I get a bit of cash if anybody buys one using the code below. However, Amphibio has no input into this video and will see it at the same time as you do. So when you're nearly there, you get to take the inflation bag off, unscrew it, and then just screw it up. And then I'm going to finish it off with my mouth in a minute. And that's it, finally. So there we have the packraft, inflated, quite nice and firm, which is the way I like it, and ready for the river. You now need to attach the seat, and this is the seat. It's an inflatable seat. You just need to literally blow into it to inflate it. It's quite simple. And then it goes into the packraft, just fits in like this. And there's a clip underneath that attaches it to the packraft. So that's the seat. And then obviously last but not least is a buoyancy aid. And I bought a fairly cheap one. I wasn't sure at first whether I needed one. Because obviously it's a bit of a hassle to have one, so you've got to carry it around everywhere. But in the end I decided that safety first. And now I've quite got used to it. It gives me a bit of extra warmth over a t-shirt, and it's got a little pocket. I can put my GoPro in there, so I'm quite happy with it. I mean, the one thing I didn't buy and I don't have is a helmet. You quite often see people in pack rafts with helmets, but for the kind of rivers that I fish in Argentina, they're all quite calm. So I reckon I didn't need one, and I don't have one. It seems to be going fine at the moment. I chose this make and model because it's light and because of the price. I originally intended to buy a lighter model, the Amphibio Alpha XC, but they recommended the Delta MX because it's slightly larger and stronger. Getting into the packraft is always a little bit awkward. Normally I have my wading boots on, so I'll get into the river first, then get into the boat, but it's slightly deeper here. Also, I'd normally have my 2 backpacks attached to the packraft. You can see these handy little attachment points, so you can get a cord through those, strap it down, and then we're all set to go. I always make sure, by the way, that everything I have in the packraft is attached for obvious reasons. So let's give it a whirl. And we're good. Here we go. I'm afloat. In England, by the way, not Argentina, but it feels good to be in. Let's give it a go. Yeah, that feels familiar. And it's interesting, I don't know if you can see, but when I paddle, it really wiggles from side to side. And that is something that you need to get used to with pack rafting. It's maybe not as efficient as a canoe or kayak, but it does work. And if you're floating downstream, absolutely no problem at all. Look at the wind taking me there. Well, that was great. Felt really good to be back in the pack raft, even here in England. And I can't wait to get back to Argentina and get fly fishing in those amazing rivers. My first time on a pack raft was on the Limay Medio in 2024. I set off downstream with 2 fishing rods, tent and food for 3 days, literally not knowing what was around the next bend in the river. The trip was amazing. I caught some beautiful trout and camped in some magical places. Most important of all, I arrived safely at my destination, Naupajuén, 50 kilometers downstream. My biggest worry was getting a puncture, and later in the trip on the Illumine I did get one. Luckily it was a slow puncture, so I pumped up the packraft every morning and it lasted throughout the day. Repair patches are supplied with the packraft, but I didn't use them. I couldn't find the puncture when I was out there, so I waited until I was back home. It turned out there was a tiny pinhole on one seam which I fixed with a dab of specialist glue called Aquasure. It doesn't come with the repair kit, and I would definitely recommend buying a tube and taking it with you. The good news is that I didn't get a single puncture on my second trip to Argentina in 2025, despite scraping the packraft on the bottom in shallow water several times. So now I'm a lot less worried about punctures. The only other problem I had with the packraft was with the paddle. The blade of the paddle split when I was on the river, and I had to glue it back together when I was back at the campsite. I think I probably bought the wrong paddle in the first place. I now know it's not designed for white water, and some of the rivers I paddled, like the Calliafu here, had some white water. I am going to replace this paddle for my next trip to Argentina in 2027. The Amphibio Wave has been recommended. It's much stronger than the Amphibio Fly, but it's twice as heavy. However, I just can't risk breaking a paddle in the middle of nowhere on a river where I can't get help, so I'm going to get one. If you're thinking of doing a trip like mine and you want ultimate freedom, then I would 100% recommend getting a packraft. You're going to be able to fish in so many places that would otherwise be inaccessible, and you're going to have just the best time fly fishing Patagonia's wildest rivers in complete solitude. If you found this video useful, then please like and subscribe. And once again, thank you for watching.